this is what I was describing to one of my friends on this audio text. Let me close the loop.
Look at you opening all these things.
I was describing to him what it's been like, and I said, I feel it's like when you take out, all I thought of was my wife, Christy, over here, lovingly taking up the entire living room with a puzzle. And I love it. I love her. I love when she does it. But when you take out a 1,000 piece puzzle and you dump it on the table, pieces are everywhere. They're flipped upside down. You don't have the edge pieces, separated out yet. And I feel like that's exactly what happened to our lives over the last number of weeks, is we were a 1,000 piece puzzle that just got dumped upside down.
You are listening to the Famous at Home podcast with Dr. Josh and Christy Straub.
Because when it's all said and done, we all want to know that we were famous at home.
Welcome back to the Famous at Home podcast. We are in a somewhat of a series. I don't even know that we have a series. We're just talking about things that are important, that are going on in our lives, and kind of what we're hearing from each of you, but also what we're hearing out in the streets, because we go out in the streets a lot.
Totally. Us and the Amish. We just, ask polls. Bring mics.
Well, I
questions.
feel like I haven't been here. Like, I feel like
you haven't been here.
I haven't really been here.
You actually do get it from the streets.
So I just got back. I normally take the kids with me, or at least one child with me everywhere I speak. This weekend I didn't. I just got back from preaching at a church, and I went alone, and I'm really grateful I did.
How was that?
It was actually really lovely. So we're talking about replenishing, but I was actually out in the streets because I was actually talking to people as I was serving having the privilege to serve at this church, and that's what we want to talk about today. We want to talk about kind of what we're hearing about slowing down, what we're dealing with, because what I was able to speak on, it was back to school, kind of celebration, blessing for the church on these people and on the congregation. And they invited me to come in and speak on like just blessing, but talking about family rhythms in the middle of busyness, in the middle of school, in the middle of activities, and how to make sure that we don't miss our loved ones, how to make sure that we don't miss our kids. And afterwards, I had so many people come up to me and talk to me about, I just wish we could slow down. I just wish it wasn't, I wish it weren't so busy. I don't even know where to begin to make it not be so fast and so hectic and chaotic. And the reality is that is the Western industrial complex. That is the culture we have been a part of, that we are all so immersed in that we actually don't know how to get out of it. Mm-hmm. And we're all products of it. It's affected all of us. It's like having contaminated drinking water. It's in all of our water. And we have to have a filter for getting out the bad stuff. Call it the Berkey filter of slowing down. Whatever.
I like this analogy. I've never heard you say this. I like this.
Yeah. So it's I think it's fascinating that we are, I used another analogy today. This is funny. So I think maybe you'll relate to this analogy. So I love voice texting with buddies and friends. And now that we're on the road a lot more, especially staying connected to my buddies back in Tennessee, and we've got a lot going on back there, which is so amazing. And we're going to actually be back there most of October, which I'm so excited about. And we're cultivating and working on land there, which is so exciting and so fun. It is wild how that feels like home to me, and that is home to me. And just this whole journey, you really start to, this is what I was describing to one of my friends on this audio text. Let me close the loop.
Look at you opening all these things.
I was describing to him what it's been like, and I said, I feel it's like when you take out, all I thought of was my wife, Christy, over here, lovingly taking up the entire living room with a puzzle. And I love it. I love her. I love when she does it. But when you take out a 1,000 piece puzzle and you dump it on the table, pieces are everywhere. They're flipped upside down. You don't have the edge pieces, separated out yet. And I feel like that's exactly what happened to our lives over the last number of weeks, is we were a 1,000 piece puzzle that just got dumped upside down. And now we're trying to figure out where do the pieces fit? And that's what I feel like it's been like.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, we're starting to get there. We're starting to get the edge pieces. We're starting to separate kind of what's going to go where. The RV, the land in Tennessee, what we're building there, you know, our outpost and all that. And I needed that. I think I needed that sense of like, at least we're starting to get the pieces, because I felt like a puzzle that had just been dumped out.
Good analogy.
And I didn't have any, and the kids were with us all the time. Homeschooling has started. We're in the middle of that like crazy. We're leading our business. If you've noticed, like even, you know, last week, we actually skipped a week of podcasts because we just didn't have anything recorded. We were just out of like time. It just didn't happen. And so this weekend was lovely because even my flight got delayed, and you always get a pit in your stomach when your flight's delayed. Not delayed, canceled. It was actually canceled while I was speaking. I find this out afterwards and trying to figure this thing out. But it turned out to be a blessing because I had more time alone, and I needed it to journal. I needed it to make a list of everybody I needed to contact, what I needed to do to get balls rolling. And now here we are, and I'm energetic and alive and well enough to podcast and get this baby out to y'all. So,
and then on my front, I mean, I got the text from him that I just got a text, my flight's canceled, and it was like, ugh. And I was sick. You got something from somewhere. You've been everywhere. So
Canada, Colorado, Nashville.
He's brought home something from somewhere.
Somewhere,
and
Wisconsin,
it's gone through everybody. And so then I get it, and I'm feeling awful. And he's, you know, gone. And so I have the kids, and I'm sick, and every parent knows what that's like. And so it was just this like, oh, I just need you to get home. And it was good because I thought it was a quick trip, and then your flight got canceled. But I just had this check in my spirit. I was sad. Like, I was genuinely sad because I was really excited for him to come back. And then it was this like, I can't control this anymore. And Lord, I give up trying to input my will on what you've obviously allowed. And I think just the reality of like, I need to start living in a very different way and let go of control. Like, I can't even let this upset me. And so he's speaking, and I need to he's like, do you think you could call the airline on my behalf? Cause I'm speaking, I'm not gonna be able to reschedule it. So I was like, sure. So I got on the phone, and I'm waiting for like 48 minutes, I think, on the phone to talk to somebody. And by the time I got to someone, I was so proud of myself because I was just like, hey, I'm calling on behalf of my husband. His flight was canceled. I need to reschedule. And I wasn't mad. I wasn't like taking it out on this sweet woman. It was just like, yep, this is what it is. And I'm saying this like so honestly, that probably wouldn't have been me before, where it's like this, I wouldn't be rude to somebody, but there's this air of like frustration of like, you have affected my life, and I'm like bitter about it. I was just so like, you needed to stay that night, and I'm okay with it. Like, it
allowed me to be there in with such a different spirit.
Yeah, because I wasn't, oh my goodness, have I not been in that? We've been in those seasons where it's like, I needed you home yesterday. And so then he feels the tension of like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to get home, and she's overwhelmed, and it's too much, you know. But it was just like, I was like, I hope you have the best night. Like, sleep, work out, go out for dinner. Like, I hope you have such a good night, because you need to replenish. So then on this end, I out of nowhere, our kids do not like sleeping without us, like meaning like sleepovers or going to other people's houses to sleep if mom and dad aren't there. Typically, like, they're not like, yeah, that'd be so great. It'd be like, oh, okay. So all of a sudden the kids were like, I think I want to go sleepover at Grammy and Pap's tonight, which is Josh's parents. And the fact that that's even an option is a wild world of like, we've never lived near family. So it was just surreal. But wants to go sleep. And I was like, okay. And all three of them want to do this, including the little guy. And she's like, that's so great. And it happened to be Grandparents' Day. And I didn't know that was a thing, but apparently it's a thing. And so, and then they were going to wake up there and it's your mom's birthday. And so I was like, but I'll be totally honest. I was like, I don't know the last time I've been alone, honestly, just by myself, nor I'm in this little 1,000 square foot cabin in the middle of the woods by myself. I did have the dog though. And so I came home by myself and I slept in this little cabin by myself. And it was the most rejuvenating, restoring night. I did a puzzle. I made cookies. I did some SE exercises for myself. Like, we can talk about that another time, but for not just the ones that I do with clients, but for me, I did them for me because I had time and I could. And I woke up and it was quiet and I was able to have a quiet time. And I literally, Mom brought them back to drop them off and I cried because I was like, because the kids were worried about me sleeping by myself in the cabin in the woods. And so they're like, Mom, are you okay? Like, how did it go? And I was like, guys, I had the best night. Like, I didn't know how much I needed that. Like, and so this brought on this whole conversation between Josh and I of like, you know, how much we emphasize and talk about family. For sure. We talk about marriage. Yes. And I just don't ever want that to get out of balance with how much care is necessary for ourselves. And as I was praying this morning, the Lord just said to me, like, what I want you to work on is self-compassion, meaning like caring for yourself, Christy. Like so focusing on that, like self-compassion really is caring for myself. That's what the Lord was sharing with me this morning in my time that was quiet. And that's been something in the middle of just the turbulence of just this season. But I hear this all the time because I get to meet with women who, most of which are moms, who are wrestling with the balance of caring for themselves if they're working, if with their children, with their marriage. Like, there's so much output. And what we were just talking about is really making sure we're, for us, but also to share the emphasis on input. Like, I know the whole self-care culture that's a whole other thing that I don't think is super helpful sometimes, because like manicures, pedicures, like you think that's what self-care is.
But that doesn't it doesn't fuel your soul.
Right.
And
totally.
I think there's something you have to pay attention to when it comes to soul work. And it was funny because your illustration of like calling the Southwest agent, Southwest amazing, by the way. Christy called, she got me on a new flight, but then I ended up getting on a different flight. And then this morning I woke up and got on an even different flight because I just kept asking, and it was awesome. It worked out so well. But they
were lovely.
They're amazing.
I just have to say, they were so lovely.
I do love flying Southwest. Southwest. I'm a Southwest guy. And so there was a woman this morning lining up that reminded me of the entitled. She starts lining up. You can tell she didn't fly much. She doesn't fly much because it's like for Southwest, you have to line up row A 1 through 30, 31 through 60, and then B, and then C. And she's like, everyone's already lined up. And she's like, what are you? I'm B39. What are you? Oh, you're not B30. Oh, and I'm like B52 or something. And she's just like, well, I'm B39. And like everyone's looking at her like, wow, honey, like, okay, just go look at the sign, walk on up, stand right there. Like, like the guy next to me sticks his thumb on his nose. He's like, it's almost like she could have just been like, nah. But anyway, so it was really funny. But that's how we get. That's how we get when we don't feel like we have control and we want to regain control.
Yeah.
And it's like this sense
That's
of
so true.
surrender. And when the puzzle pieces are laying all out, and this is what I keep hearing and kept hearing this weekend too, it's like with school, with activities, with all these things going on, for us, it's like we have school, we've got work, we've got so many moving parts. Our travel schedule is ridiculous right now, and it's amazing. Like, it's all good things. Please hear me say that. I'm not complaining in the least. It is all good stuff. But with it comes this sense of unrest where all the puzzle pieces are laying out and you're trying to put them all together. And for Christy to be able to bless me to stay there and her attitude the way that it was soul rest for me. The same thing of being able to be right now for this season that we're in, to be near my parents and have the kids go spend the night there was like soul rest for Christy. And I think
It's interesting though. I just interrupted you. I'm sorry. But what I just realized is I blessed you first. And then it was like the Lord blessed me. You know? Like, I didn't know that they were going to, not that it would have been a huge deal if they'd stayed, but I didn't know the gift that it was. And then you ended up getting on an earlier flight. So basically got you home midday today. It wasn't like we missed that much time anyway, but it gave us each a night alone. That's what
Lord
it
knew
did.
we needed it.
Yeah. Anyway.
And maybe it's what you need too. Maybe that's why we're doing this. Maybe that's why this all happened.
Yeah.
I don't know why it all happened. I do know that we both capitalized on the moment. And I think that's the thing that I really want to encourage each of you with is people kept coming up and saying, we're so busy. I just wish we could slow down. How do we, I really want to create these rhythms, but I don't know how. Famous at Home is a great book, by the way. If you're interested in that, there's some really solid information in there about how to set healthy rhythms in your home and do that with your family. But I think for me, it's not just, as Christy said, going and getting a pedicure and a manicure and things like that. This is soul rest.
Yeah.
And you have to find the very things that bring you rest. For the mastermind group of dads that I'm a part of we were out in Colorado, one of the biggest things they're struggling with is the same thing we are talking about right now. Business owners trying to find time with young kids to still be creative and plan their creativity and work and get everything done. And to be honest, like the things for me that have helped me, I'm just going to say it. I'm going to tell you what brings me soul rest and let the chips fall where they do. Because I know a lot of you are watching this or listening to this and you're like, I don't know how to do that. We don't live near family. We can't just send our kids there. To their grandparents, or it's toxic. Like we don't want to send our kids to the grandparents, or it is, you're just like, we don't get to travel. We don't get to do those things, but we don't have space. We don't have that. Listen, the things that I'm doing right now to bring me soul rest include working out. Now, I haven't done it in a while, but I'm figuring out ways to fight for it and get it back. Writing, which I also, if you follow the newsletter, you'll notice I haven't written in a while. I spent some time writing this weekend. There's something about writing out my thoughts that does something. Writing, working out. I have a monk manual. It's called a monk manual. It's just it's a day timer. It's a thing that helps me keep track of my time. I journal in it. I do that on the daily because it brings me soul rest. It keeps my world in order. I do a daily lectionary every morning with the Bible. So I do two to four Psalms, depending on what it calls for that day, Old Testament reading, New Testament reading, and a gospel reading. And I need that. I need that for my soul rest. I have to read it at some point throughout the day. If I do not wake up early before everybody else and get it done, I find a time to do it throughout the day. I need that time. The other thing that I realized that I haven't had that I need is time with Christy. I need time with you, and we haven't had it because the puzzle pieces have felt like they've been flipped all over and upside down. So that's another thing that I need to be fighting for. And then the other one is reading a book. I have to always be in a book. If I'm not always in a book and I'm not retaining information of some type, I am feeling out of whack. And so whether it's listening to sermons, whether it's reading a book, whatever it is, I am a learner. I enjoy doing those things, and I need that for soul rest. So those are the things that bring me soul rest. I don't know what it is for you, but But I encourage, here's what I would say, is fighting for each other to get that time alone if you're married. And if you're not married, fighting for yourself to bring someone you trust to watch the kids or have them be somewhere where, and I think this is another thing too. I think we have time in the day. I think a lot of times we end up I think we squander it. I think we squander our time. I don't know that we actually, like, if your kid's at practice or somewhere and you do have some time while you're waiting, do the things that bring you soul rest. Don't scroll on your phone.
Yeah. Oh, it's so, yep. I don't know. Yep. Mm-hmm. That's it. I think it's the wasting of time. But can I say something about that too? When we're wasting time and scrolling on our phone, I don't want that to feel shameful, because that tells you that you've been under a lot of stress for a really long time. And so your body's going into what we would call dorsal, or it's a shutdown response, but to conserve energy. So whenever you're scrolling the phone, Netflix binging, especially if you're like watching TV and scrolling at the same time, that tells you've been used to a constant amount of stress and stimulation for so long that you really don't actually know how to be without it. So you have it going while you are just numb and just sort of zoned out. And don't take that as like, tisk, tisk. Just take that as information that tells you that you're really tired and that you, just like Josh is saying, have a lot going on in your life that it's too much for your body to metabolize.
Yeah, but I would also challenge you that not to stay there.
Right. Well, yeah, but you have to
be
know
aware.
what to do.
Yeah.
Once you realize that's what you're doing, notice, like, if you take that layer of shame off of it, there's nothing wrong with you. In fact, your body's protecting you in a beautiful way, but it's not very helpful.
Like for me this weekend, like football was on this weekend for the first time, and I was like, or it wasn't the first time, but it was on, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like I could just sit in my room and watch football. And I did for probably about 20 minutes where I was just completely zoned. And then I was like, I am going to be so angry at myself.
Yeah.
Because I have not done anything that brings my soul rest. Mm-hmm. So I have got to get off my butt, and I've got to do something other than just watch football. I can have it on in the background, but I've got to do something that makes me feel like my soul is getting rest.
Yeah.
And
which is great, but that's,
because I know that for myself.
You know that, but a lot of people don't. And so I'm just saying, don't hear this with shame. Hear this with
100%. 100%.
Oh, I make sense. That's why I'm doing that. That makes total sense. And then talk about the word from God this morning. Have self-compassion, compassion for self. Wow. That means I've been under a lot for a long time. Mm-hmm. And as parents, I really think that's so real. Like, I don't know that we really understand the weight of the constant, we'll just say the weight of the constantness of parenting. Like, you're constantly evaluating all the things all the time. How's everyone doing? Having your pulse on their emotional life, their physical. Are they eating? Are they drinking? Do they have this or that? Do they have this or that? How are they? I feel like they're withdrawn. I feel like we're not connecting. I feel like, and then in your marriage, like your brain, and maybe I'm speaking probably more from a woman's perspective, but I do think men are also evaluating millions of data points at the same time. Work related, home related, how they're providing, all the projects they have going on. Just noticing how much that is on a system. Like, it's a lot. And so caring for yourself is very different than surviving your life. And I think a lot of us have come to cope by just trying to survive. And let this maybe be an encouragement to you. If you find yourself in that place, it makes total sense. And therefore, what can you do to start to shift out of that place? And if you're realizing like you're in that place, this is no pitch for coaching. We're mostly full, but I'm not trying. You need to reach out to someone who can walk alongside you to help navigate some of those pieces. Sometimes you can't do it by yourself. Sometimes you can, and that's great. But if you're finding that you can't, reach out for help. Like, I would love to come alongside you, women, And
Well-
I say this to say, like, I've been there. I know what this is like, and I know how helpless it feels and then the shame that just covers you because you're like, I did this again, or I lost it, on my kids again, or on my husband, and I'm not this. I hate that I do this, and it makes sense considering all that you've been through. It absolutely makes sense, but there's better ways to restore than what's been working, not really working, but what you've been trying.
Right. And when you say that, I think of, the first thing I'm thinking of is all the women who want to be like, hey, I want to do this. And I'm thinking, okay, you need to do a group coaching program on this. So I'm saying this on the podcast, and maybe you could think about figuring out a way to do something of that nature to help.
That's actually a really good idea.
Like just to get a bunch of women on Zoom and just coach them on this at some point. Total idea, total happening in the moment here on the podcast. So
we've actually never talked about that before.
But I think it could be something that could be very powerful for you to do that with. But
it's so, and it is because it's so common. But like I will hear it's again and again and again.
And here's why this is so important, though. This is so important because, and if you've heard us talk on the podcast for a while, by the way, if you are a woman who would be interested, we'll put an interest form in the show notes today, and you can sign up if you'd be interested. We'll create an interest list, and we'll see if we can pull something together.
Look at you.
If it'd
You
be
just
something
roll. You just
that you'd want to do. But my mind was going to 100 different things you were talking there. But I think this is why this is important. This is important because, and you might have heard us say this before, but this is important because you can sum up all of parenting research into one primary conclusion, and that's that our kids become who we are.
Yeah.
A researcher out of Harvard did a meta-analysis and looked at the top 10 parenting strategies to get the outcomes we most desire in our kids. The number one strategy was love and affection. I believe that we can only love, though, based on how well we have received love. So the Bible says in 1 John, we love because he first loved us. The first question a therapist asks you when you walk into the counseling office is, how was your relationship with your parents? How well were you loved? Our ability to feel love and experience love from our Father, hallowed be your name. Like, he loves us so much with an everlasting love. And I believe that all of our sin is a result of us not feeling loved and pressing into how much we are the beloved. The second greatest parenting strategy is a parent's ability to manage his or her own stress. Like, what are we talking about? We're talking about a parent's stress. Third greatest parenting strategy to get the outcomes you desire in your kids is how you treat your spouse or how you treat a co-parent in a divorce situation. I would argue that of the top three, none of them have to do with a direct relationship with our kids. They have everything to do with who we're becoming as adults. And even when Christy is overwhelmed or I'm overwhelmed, our ability to fight for each other's heart and focus on what's going on within each other's heart matters more than what's going on between the two of us. And so I just really want to encourage you, if you're married and your spouse is feeling overwhelmed and drained and you feel like you have 1,000 pieces flipped upside down on the table right now, give each other ridiculous grace because you're both doing everything that you possibly can, or maybe you're not, but you're trying. And maybe there's more you could do. But a lot of times
there's a reason you can't offer more, though.
And it's like Christy said too, it's like, I don't think that us as men, our brains are all over a billion different things, but in the things that we're currently focused on, we feel like we're crushing it. We feel like we're doing everything that we possibly can. The problem is it's like, even with this whole idea of multi-generational family living, all this idea of building for the kingdom, building an outpost, biblical hospitality, the Father and my cooking and my ability to be able to be that for people and to host people, those were all revelations to me. And my friend Jeremy Pryor, he mentioned this past integrated mastermind group. He said, when you hear something new for the first time, rather than just simply going, oh, that sounds interesting. Yeah, I should apply that to my life. What we need to do, our first step should be repentance. It should be, I'm sorry that I didn't know that. I'm sorry that I haven't pursued this differently. I'm sorry that I haven't led my family the way that I should have been leading my family. I'm sorry that I could have been doing a better job. I'm sorry. And it's in repentance that we receive God's unbelievable loving grace. He's pursuing us, that we then feel free, that we then feel incredible freedom, and we're not walking in the shame that Christy's talking about. And so I just want to say, as parents, I believe there's nothing greater for us in raising our kids than being able to make sure that we are leveling up in all of the areas of our lives. And a lot of times what that means is you need to slow down and find time for yourself and find the very things that bring you soul rest. And that might bring you all the way back to the point of just simply realizing that you're scrolling and becoming aware of it and going, oh, wow, I'm scrolling right now. That means this. That could very well be your first step. But we're not going to be able to take that first step until we become aware. And I think that leads to repentance, which leads to freedom.
Good. That's good. You got me excited right now.
I'm putting her to work.
Well, that would be really cool because, yeah.
I think it'd be great. I think it'd be fantastic.
You see so much similarity between people, and we've done the group stuff before with Leader's Heart and all that, and group is so powerful. Like, individuals helpful for sure for, specific things, but the group dynamic is so powerful. That just has me really excited.
Yeah, if you're a mama and you'd be interested in signing up for something like that with Christy, coaching program, maybe like once a week, something like that. And I don't even know what it would look like. I'm totally off the top of my head right now, but I think.
Well, and what I think we're talking about is like when you don't feel like yourself anymore, and you want to feel regulated again. Regulated is basically that term of like, you are able to bring yourself back once a stressor hits, where you're calm, you're able to connect, you're curious, you're creative, you're playful. Like, if that state feels really foreign and you don't spend a lot of time there, that just tells you your system is dysregulated. And I think it's so valid. Someone said this the other day to me, like, I think post-pandemic, like, the whole world is dysregulated. And I thought, probably pre-pandemic it was too, but yeah, I think it's at least heightened everyone's awareness to like, oh, maybe I'm not doing okay. And I think there's actually a really beautiful awareness and humility about that. But that would be my thought on, that's what all of us need, is help finding ourselves again and introducing ways to bring our bodies back into regulation, so that we get to come back online. Like, that's who we really are when we're in that place, when we're angry all the time, when we have fits of rage, when we're irritated, resentful, when we're shut down, numb, joyless, can't experience, you don't feel the highs or the lows of life. All of that just speaks to a dysregulated nervous system. And
this is why we don't like the word parenting, but we like the word becoming.
Yeah.
Because
100%.
Our kids become who we are.
I taught the kids this morning, funny enough, we're talking about this. I taught them the 3 states of the nervous system and how we move, why we move between them, how you know which one you're in, and what that feels like. And the kids were like, they got it. They're 9 and 11. And I was like, if children can get this, like, I have had adults say, if I had known this 15 years ago, 20 years ago, like, it would have changed my life. Like, I would have not gone through decades of all the stuff they've been through. And I thought, same, like, same, if I'd have known it. And I think for all of us, just the hope, and I'll just leave it with this. The Lord has created our bodies to heal. That's how they're designed. And there are things that have gotten in the way of our healing. And this just, you're created to heal. And I believe the Lord is in the healing of us. And it's just beautiful to watch and experience, me personally. And it's so possible. That's the hope. It's like, it really is.
So if you're overwhelmed and you feel like a 1,000 piece puzzle just flipped upside down right now, find what brings your soul rest, and it will do wonders for your kids. I highly encourage you to help your kids find what coping skills work for them too, because I'm telling you, the earlier you can give them these tools, the more blessed they will be as they go throughout life and grow in emotional intelligence and spiritual maturity. With that said, until next week, keep in mind that the greatest red carpet you will walk is through your front door.
Keep being famous at home. Love you.